All right, we're ready, Eric? All right. Let's hear. I will now call to order the work session for June 20, 2023. Thank you everyone for being here. We got a pretty short agenda. I think we're going to get out here by 5. That's the goal anyway. So you said that straight. Before we move into the first agenda item, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's move right into it. Advanced metering infrastructure updates.
Well, just quickly, this update today is just about some of the projects that we have going on. It's just a status update. All of these projects will have to come back to you all as they progress. And so there'll be some milestones that we'll circle back around on. So I'll kick it off to Marty and then.
In an effort to make sure we meet your schedule, sir, my update's very brief.
Thanks
Thanks for your comments, it was nice.
So our meter system upgrade, y'all may have heard it referred to as AMI or Advanced Metering Infrastructure in the past. That project's actually going to be called a meter system upgrade as we move forward with it. We hope to have a contract in place with Ferguson and Census within a month. It's in their ball court right now. They're reviewing our terms. Our team has worked very hard and long on getting terms that are favorable to the town. I think they've done a really good job, and that's, you can tell, because every time we give it to them, their lawyers come back with a whole bunch of markups saying things they can't agree with. So, but we're going to have a good agreement when we get it in place. Once that agreement's in place and that contract's in place, the first thing that happens is we will install the infrastructure network, the communication network, if you will. That will take about 6 months. Installation and commissioning, like test meters. So we're not going to just build a system and then do everything at once, right? So we'll build the communication network. Then we will place meters, electric and water throughout different big locations through our system and make sure that we're getting reads. We will integrate this with our new ERP that we're getting. Hopefully we'll only have to do that one time. They're ahead of us, so that's going to work out really well. Once we know that we can get the reads and the system can read it and all the billing numbers are correct, then at that point, we will start moving forward with full implementation of pushing out the meters and installing them and replacing all the meters we have. And then at the same time, we will start installing any new meter which we would have would be installed as per the new metering system upgrade. So
Marty, so new builds in the last year or two have not had these smart meters installed?
two totally different technologies. So, so the technology which we're going with is proprietary. So we wouldn't be able to read those meters with our drive-by. So we have to right now, everything we're putting in right now is still compatible with our drive-by. What we're going to is advanced metering, which doesn't require the drive-by. Totally different system. So the two will work together. The actual water meters that we're putting in will still be good and still work. We have to basically replace the ERC, the brains of the meter, if you will, the electronic component that's attached to it. That's the part that's getting switched out for the water meters. The electric meters will be a switch out altogether for residential.
Do you have any supply chain? Because it sounds like a big project to replace 26,000 meters across town. Do we have 26,000 meters? Can we get 26,000 meters?
That's the reason. Okay, so the actual full, so if you look out this thing, so it's about 12 months to get to the point that we start to the mass meter change out. So 12 months to get the base system up, to get the system verified, to get it integrated and know everything's working. Then it's about a 2-year process to get everything, everybody else switched out. Possibly could be done less. We have contractually, the way it's written, that we will be supplied and it will get done within within 2 years. We had 24 months from the time we accept the system for them or verify the system for them to basically complete the project. So it will be on our vendors' responsibility to do that now. So can't answer your question. Contractually, it's gonna take 2 years. They can get done quicker. But that's, you know,
So all meters are swapped out. So if you're not starting to replace meters until about a year after contract signature, all meters will be replaced within 12 months following.
2. So it's 2 years from the date we accept the system.
Okay, so
It-
it's your projects altogether.
It's a 30 to 36-month project. Yes, sir.
And that actually doesn't sound that bad to me. Like what, the worry is when you hear it is like, we could be doing this for a decade. And then in that decade, the next system comes out.
Right.
We got 3 different systems and then, we never actually completed. We want to just get it all done back onto one system. Because we gotta have 2 different reading systems until then, right?
Yes, sir. So the delay in this project is actually going to turn out to be hopefully a good thing for us because it will allow the ERP and IT and everybody to get all that stuff worked out, get the finances worked out with the new system. And we will only have to integrate this data once, which is much better than doing it twice.
Yeah, and to clarify something, right now we do drive-by, there's some way to connect to the meter wirelessly,
Yes, sir.
and that's not proprietary, that's like a standard or something?
There's different systems that do, all the systems are more or less proprietary. So that system works within itself, right? So the new system is a different vendor, different
So
system.
I guess the answer to my question is no. I was wondering if the new meters were compatible with the old way, so you just do the old way across the board until we're ready to switch over. It sounds like we really gotta have 2 different ways of collecting and track which customers and which one, and then.
Basically, as a separate part, we're also having a meter data management system, which that'll be coming before you at the next council meeting. This IP Keys is the company that we're looking at with that to provide the data management. So basically, it doesn't care where it gets the data, whether it gets it from, manual input, drive-by, or this automatic read. It puts the data in a format that's in this data system that's what's talking to our ERP. And so so they all have their own place in the system, if you will. So the infrastructure that we're putting in to read the meters is just gathering the data. Then you store the data and then you use the data.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Marty, I thought that someone actually read the meters right now. I didn't know this was drive-by, and I was always wondering like when they were coming by because I never see them. So you're saying it's drive-by right now. And so
Yeah.
my question is, will there be care taken somehow to alert people that this is happening? Like they're going to be coming to your house tomorrow? Because if they see somebody walking by that they're not used to, we've had this, with other things that have been happening in town, like they're going to freak out. And
Once we're to the point of we're switching out meters, there'll be a whole communication plan that will be
Yeah.
pushed out in front of that. So to educate everyone on what we're doing, how we're doing it, when they can expect to see someone, all those
yeah,
things.
good. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Stone? Good job, thank you. Next.
That's me.
ERP.
So these are projects that are kind of all married in together. As Marty said, the AMI, we're looking to get a meter data management, so it won't really matter what is fed in. It will go then to our new system for billing. So that's what we're starting with here, is the ERP. So lots of names for ERP, but this is the Enterprise Resource Planning Assessment Project. So first I'll give credit to my behind the scene guy, who is Fernando, who is helping us project it. And then also in the back, way in the corner, is Troy. He has been the front runner of these projects. He's our IT project manager and has done a fabulous job on all these projects, keeping us together on schedule, on budget, and within parameters. All right, so enterprise resource planning, project objectives. So I'm going to go over the scope, kind of our major deliverables, what we did as far as the request for proposal, the finalists that came out of the vendor, and our next steps of what we need to do. So the ERP assessment, currently we have New World, which is a Tyler product. And it does not do all the things in which all of our departments would like it to do. So we have a couple of disparate systems, which you'll see later as I go through the presentation. So we're not kind of collecting the data holistically in one system, and it is not really built for growth moving forward. So we have decided that we would get proposals from other vendors, see where we're at, see what we're currently assessed at, how we're doing things, how other vendors might do this. And other towns are actually doing the same thing. Carrie's going through assessment right now, looking at similar things that we have done, and so is Holly Springs. So our neighbors are also doing similar actions. These next few slides are just to show you what we had to kind of dig into for an ERP. So right now, a lot of the stuff that we do is very departmentalized. It's very depicted for each department, and as we grow, there's a lot of things that are integrated. So all of these functions that you see here happen within the ERP, and we want to have them happen more holistically in services. So we're replacing the functions of finance and accounting to include budget. We're replacing all of the procurement and the inventory functions. We're replacing all of the community development functions, maintenance and engineering. So all the infrastructure, ground, fleet. We're looking to replace all of the utilities. We spoke about the AMI. So this is the utility billing side, the connects, the disconnects, all the metering and how that's going to interface in with the AMI. All of HR functions, so anything we do within HR, onboarding, offboarding, position control, pay administration, and then of course, all the functional systems, right? So making sure that the new system has good security, has workflows, we can get reporting and dashboard information out of this new system. That's our goal. So right now, as you mentioned, the ERP system that we have, we took a current state landscape to see what it does, what we need it to do. We looked at all of the processes that the departments are doing, and we documented those, and we kind of prioritized them. We said, these are the scenarios that are what has to happen and what needs to be done. And we sent this off for a proposal. So we did a request for proposal, and we said, hey, this is what we need. In that proposal, when we were going through those business processes, we identified all the pain points that staff is currently having. So if a process isn't smooth, or if there's something else that's needed, or if they're like, hey, I wanted to do this program, but it was really difficult to do it because I'm really not set up with the tools to do it. We noted all of those things. We put those in scenarios, and we made sure those were identified as requirements. So here's our vendors. We had quite a few vendors that sent in responses to our request for proposal. And what we asked them to do was a little different than normal. We did have a vendor helping us with this. So our consultant was Panorama. They're in the bottom of the presentation. And what we did is ask them to kind of self-identify. I just went through all of those functions and functional requirements that we had to do. So we listed all of those out in the request for proposal. And we said, what do you do? If we made you come and present for all of this stuff, how would you grade yourself? Do you have a module that you could come in and show us that meets all of these requirements? So this is how they graded themselves. So we took the top three that we kind of had already done our homework, had already worked with Panorama to know that they already do this out in the field. So the top three, Infor, Tyler, and Tyler, again, this is not the Tyler that we currently have, New World. This is the Tyler of their Enterprise Edition. So this would be upgraded to a new edition. And then Origin. So we took those three. Those were our top three. They came in. They did the presentations. Staff was scoring, going through the evaluation. The core team from every single department out of every single functional area that I showed before. We had at least 2 staff members, if not 3, that were included that watched these and then they voted. So top 2 choices were Tyler, which is the upgraded version of the enterprise version of the software that we have, or RPI Infor STW.
Okay.
Hot. Yep.
Real quick, this chart with all the reds and greens,
Yes.
I know you want all the functional areas to be done, but
Correct.
presumably they're not all the same as far as importance goes, or are they?
So we have to certainly have them all, because right now we have them. So New World does all of these functionalities, so we don't want to lose any functionality.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean a certain vendor couldn't pair, which is what we did, with another vendor if their integrations work smoothly. So even some of the ones that could not do finance or human resources, they might be able to be a partner with a different vendor that does do that, right? And sell themselves as a package. And our focus is looking for integrations. We have been with a company currently that does not really acknowledge or play nice with others as far as integrations go. So that was one of our major goals. If we did end up with a new system, one of the requirements is that they would play nice with other people and have those integrations to other systems in case they needed to talk.
Zero's on here presumably where they didn't do it and they weren't partnering, at least
No,
actively.
this was them just evaluating themselves. Either they could do this and come in and present it with their own company, or they could not. So we wanted to know flat out, you're right. We didn't allow them integration points at this juncture of what they were sharing. They could partner with others to come in, but at this juncture, they were solely scoring on the functional areas on the left.
Okay.
Could they do it, and how well could they do it? Could they meet every single requirement that we gave them? And if they can't do it, then they had to give themselves a few.
I'm personally surprised with some of this because there are thousands of cities in the United States that all do the same thing. It seems like municipalities, sorry. And then why wouldn't they be all at least green? And then like you're evaluating like, apples and other apples instead of like, it just seems strange to me that unless, I guess New York City probably does more than Apex does, but everybody does some of the same stuff, right?
They do, and it's niche for a couple of these players that you're gonna see. It's very niche. There's finance, lots of finance software that we can buy. There are different types of inventory products they can buy. But specifically for government and in this package deal, there's not a lot. So we knew we were gonna come across that, and there's not a lot of people. So there's some great vendors. Origins was one of them. They don't do electric. So electric is also kind of a niche.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a lot of fees and that product has to be able to change, has to be able to run those fees and identify, there's a lot of programs that were just not, that they wanted you to separate it out. So that's why we wanted to look at this as a whole. We don't want to have this for this for that. We don't mind best in class if you integrate, but we really wanted to know who specifically could do what.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
What consideration did you give to migration and like training across the organization? Because it seems like this is a really big switch. One of the advantages of, you said the Tyler product was just a different version of what we have today. Is that what you
It's
said?
an entirely different product. It's their
Okay.
enterprise product. So New World was purchased by Tyler. We were told they were going to sunset New World at some
I see.
point in time, but they're moving everybody to their new.
All right, so I guess there's really no advantage to having a smoother migration there. But still, it seems like a really big project
It is.
to switch the entire organization over to using a bunch of new systems all at once.
It's a huge project.
It's a
Yeah.
huge project.
How do you-
That's why I'm going to show you
We'll get to
how
the
much
big
care that we've taken to
Okay.
do this project. It
Well, I will-
wasn't just like an overnight thing. This has been going on for a long time.
I'll wait till that.
No, yeah, no, I asked a question. Yeah, please feel free to stop me because we know this. I've said this, they've heard it 1,000 times. This is huge. So the steps that we took, you'll see, are partially because of that, because of wanting to make sure we were involving a data migration company to make sure that the data migration comes over smooth and well. We started long before even these slides, with a data governance team. Let's clean up the data that we currently have in the system. Let's make sure this is the way we want it to be. We started collecting the processes just so that everybody was kind of aware who did what, where it's coming from, where that data is going. So there's tons of homework that has gone into this. And then kind of the thought process of where we want to go next and why. And there were part of the requirements were training, that whoever we decided to go with had to be able to provide sufficient training, user groups, support for all of this stuff moving forward. So great questions, and yes, we definitely looked at that. It was part of the requirements. We had a whole list of scripts and requirements that went out to each of these vendors, and they had to score based on that as well. So our final two that were voted on by the core team, which again is people within the departments that utilize this software on a daily basis, with Tyler Technologies and then RPI Infor SEW. So they scored slightly higher within some of the functionalities. We also contacted a bunch of references. So these are the people that are using those products. So we talked to them, we got the goods, we got the bads, and duly noted. So we came back at the end because this is a huge project. So this kind of 3-step is, okay, if this is too scary for everybody, we could stay with our current state. So we can stay with what we've got with the disparate systems, kind of hang on until you're more comfortable with moving forward. We could do this. We could also go with your number one choice, option A, that's what's in green. And within that, we are keeping a few products that people are very comfortable with. So we're not doing everything all at once. So IDT is how they prep for projects. CityWorks is how people are doing their maintenance work right now. We can keep those for now, and there's a tight integration, and we can move on later. Or we can go with Tyler. Tyler, we do have some of their products already. Not Cornerstone, but Cornerstone is something we would continue to use because we wouldn't replace. But we already use Tyler ExecuTime. We already use Tyler Cashiering. So those products would actually stay. And then these would just be the new products from Tyler that we would use. So given that they're not extremely excited about the 2 products we already have with Tyler that are in the new version, they decided to stick with the original RPI, Infor, and SEW. So they were awarded. We have are working towards a relationship with them. So what are our next steps to the implementation? So we're gonna, well, Troy back there is gonna build out a nice detailed project plan, timeline, and activities for all of this. We've actually already started meetings and discussions because finance is the first department that will need to go first, because obviously all of the general ledgers, the funds, all of that has to be in line for everything else to fall into place. We're going to identify this, we started this, like I said, a long time ago. As you know, there's been lots of changes, especially in Antoine's department. So new team members, getting them caught up to date, getting everybody on board with everything that's gone on in the past and where we're at. Finalizing the project logistics and the schedule, and launching. So current state is phase 3. We're on schedule so far. All contracts have been signed off on, and we're working to open up all of the purchase orders. Best case estimate date is late summer of 2024, that we'll have some sort of soft launch or production. Finance, HR, and budget are going to be the initial departments to begin. And the planning sessions with RPI, MillSoft, and SEW are coming soon. So RPI is the consultant. MillSoft is the piece. So this goes back to we kind of got the best in breed and people that will work together. MillSoft does all of the utility billing side. So they're the ones that do a great job of doing electric and water and stormwater and putting all those and making those changes as we need for programs moving forward. And then SEW was kind of the fit for both the AMI side, as they do a lot and will provide a lot of resident information within their system. So SEW is the smart energy water company that the customers will see when they log in. That will be their kind of portal. So that ties directly with the AMI project and also with the project that's coming up next, which is our customer service standards. So that's the ERP. Before I go any further, are there any more questions on the ERP?
Can I hear more about, can I hear more about this? So every once in a while when I go to these municipal things, I hear about smart cities and smart whatever. And I know there's like, tangible things like if the water's leaking, the AMI presumably will be able to see it and be able to alert somebody, whatever else, like those kind of things. So was that part of, I guess a lot of that would be
That's
future
part of the
things.
AMI. Yes.
A lot of that would be future things, not current things that are happening in Apex. Like the expandability of these things to those kind of applications. How is that part of the versus current things that are being done?
So that is definitely baked in. So that's where the projects I said kind of marry. So as we're doing the automated metering infrastructure, like he said, it's going to go into what we call the meter database management. And all of that information then can feed up into these systems. So that SEW, I said, the smart energy water, that a resident can receive alert along with the team that's working on the meters can receive alerts to know what's going on. So if they want to know, you want to know if your water usage is high, you'll have control to do that in the new portal in the new system.
Yeah.
If there's different alerting that they want to know in the AMI system, then they'll, yes, the reads will be taking on a more frequent basis. So things will happen and you'll have more data to collect.
Some of this stuff needs to be kind of almost near real time in
Right.
theory. And I'm
Right,
guessing.
and that's why instead of doing it daily, I don't want to speak to the AMI, but instead of doing it daily, they'll do it in a more, much more frequent increments.
Yeah.
It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
Okay.
whatever they decide. We're just here to make sure it can be done.
Okay.
Quick question first.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly impressed that you guys, taking this step. I mean, changing over, basically your skeletal system is very tough. So my hat's off to you for great progress on this. My question is geared towards, as with any time we're doing these sort of changes, we're always going to have a lot of hiccups. And that to me is expected. How do we best inform and what's our plan to tell the public about some of these hiccups and what are our auditing processes to kind of help stop some things that could happen? I reflect back to when Social Security Administration made a change of its systems back in late 90s. And unfortunately, a number of folks either paid too much to Social Security or the junction that was supposed to happen with the VA didn't quite work out. So there were some missing payments and people were underpaid, people were overpaid. I anticipate we're going to have some overbillings, probably some underbillings that'll take place in there. What's our goal and how are we auditing to see how those things take place? How do we fix those things?
So we have a consultant that's been helping us, and they will probably continue to help us because that's what they do for a living. But hopefully I never have to change one out more than once every 10 years. So that's a prayer, but yeah, hopefully not. So we'll have a consultant that'll be helping us. We've already kind of baked that into a little bit of the contract for the people that we're working with. Because they also do this, right? They implement this on a regular basis. That's their job. So we're going to be looking at it, and we're going to hopefully do some soft launch because we have a lot of moving parts. So I agree, it's going to take some hits, and not everything's going to go perfect. But we certainly do have both. That's why we got the data specialists, so they can help and they can verify and they can see what's wrong. Got a separate company just for them. We've got the consultants, Panorama, who do this on a regular basis. And then we have the vendors that's in their contract to kind of help us out and make sure that we're validating that data. So the project manager back there, we're definitely have time put in for auditing and assuring that there's data validation, which was a big part of what we started with the data governance team, is to, do you know your data? Because we don't. You're right. I won't know if the bill goes out, whether it be right or wrong. So that'll be partnering with finance to make sure that they proofread all that stuff before it goes out, and then working with our vendors to say, yes, that looks accurate. That looks like something that can go to production.
Do you have any thoughts on the transition between the two systems and how that'll work? Will there be a time when both systems are live and you could perhaps do any given business task in one or the other? It's not working here or there. That's my biggest fear is you flip the switch and then something doesn't work. And how do you unflip the switch?
Yeah, no, there definitely is a rollback plan. So yes, both systems will be concurrent. We paid maintenance and for Tyler to keep on, to keep going. So we've warned them that, you know, this is coming, as they have told us that at some point, you know, New World will be sunsetted, but far down the road. So we have plenty of time to have both systems.
How do the employees kind of at large in the company feel about this? Like, I worry about.
Pitchfork standing outside, ready to, yeah, probably.
Well, no, yeah.
We've got a whole change
Yeah,
management process.
That's
So,
part of it. They were involved in it.
yeah,
pretty
they've
heavily
been
to
in-
start with.
They've been involved since the very beginning. We have taken the, like I said, very patient, probably too patient for some people at times, just to make sure that everybody is almost eager to do this. So that they're coming in, they're ready, they're like, I've worked on this, I just want to get it over with, let's go. So we've really spent a lot, as much time as we can, or that was afforded to us on the change management process to make sure people are ready.
But generally, with any, I don't care what organization goes through an ERP, there are gonna be some people standing outside.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, works.
they've stared at
Ready.
the same screen for 30 years, right? What to do?
And the other thing that Erica's team is managing is that all of this is tied into like some of the same folks that are working on the ERP process are part of the AMI process, will be a part of the CSS process. So also kind of managing their time and their capacity as well.
Yeah.
So she's done a great job, really trying to understand our business processes, who's involved, and like the sequencing of events to make sure that we're not overwhelming.
Part of the change management piece too will be, you know, that upfront training that comes with it. You mentioned training earlier and everything, so it's good move forward. Eric and I spoke, we're not doing the whole train thing. Everybody's getting trained. So we're not going, oh, we're just not taking a couple people and then you come back and train everybody. Everybody's gonna get trained. All the power users and train, there's people that will train later on, that will develop organically, just naturally, because it always does. Upfront, everybody's gonna be in, make sure they get trained to be comfortable, so as the transition happens. Because eventually there will be that cutover day, but in the meantime, you know, you're running concurrently, and then we'll work up to that transition.
And does our contract include what level of support in those first couple days? Because I mean, I almost would want the vendor like in the room
Right.
in the corner, just waiting for, you know, that weird error message to pop up.
So it went 3 months, but I think did it change the first year? I can't remember what Antoine asked for. When we switch
certain
over?
elements are-
For 24-hour support for 1 year.
For 1 year. Yeah, it went from 3 months and then we upgraded it to 1 year. So if there's an issue with the software that our residents are using, they are going to stand in and be help desk. So they are going to literally help us take those calls because I don't have that big a department, and neither does finance. So if, you know, a bunch of people should decide that there's an issue, the vendors are actually, they provide that service for us. And we spoke to people that had it. At first, we thought we'd be good with about 3 months. And our finance director's like, no, I'd like that for a year. So we're like, deal, got it for a year.
All right.
So y'all been talking about this for a long time, okay, very long time. I'm glad it's being done.
Yes,
We'll hide pitchforks.
yes. We've suited all IT up with some kind of night gear, so they're ready. All right, so we're gonna move on to the customer service standards, formerly known as 311. So we're calling it customer service standards because that's our focus. And just a little front insight, we don't know what phone number we're going to be using yet. We've been fooling around with Peak at the end, 311 at the end, whatever all the phone numbers will be migrated to so that anybody on a cellular or landline or wherever, they'll get the same experience wherever they are calling that number. So we're not sure what that is yet. So the customer service standards project and overview, again, another huge project, lots of phases. We assess the current state. So the ERP to me is the internal, right? That's the inside. So now we're looking at all the processes that we do on the outside, which are a whole other same kind of mess as the inside. So we had to assess what's being done, build a roadmap and then make sure we're engaging the resident. And then we'll talk about the next steps that we have for that. So this was also a 3-phased approach. So we had to understand the resident's journey, and we had to identify what the ideal resident experience would be, and then develop what we, in future state, what we want this to look like, right? We've got what we've got, we want what we want to do, so what's it going to look like in the end? And this kind of just goes through details of each phase where we got the subject matter experts together, we did a bunch of surveys, and we collected a bunch of data, and then we're finalizing it and putting it into a template. So scope, activities, and outcomes. If I'm talking too fast, because I want to make sure I get out to here 5, you let me know. Any questions, please feel free to stop me. These are the service areas that we identified. So these are the things that people are calling in, asking a lot of questions. So right now, all the departments are kind of handling everything independently. It's what we call a decentralized system. So if you have a problem with an electric, you're calling an electric. If you have a problem with parks, you're calling parks. We also talked to Cary, since they recently went to kind of like a 311 model, and Holly Springs. We also talked to a bunch of other people in North Carolina, like Charlotte. We talked to Greensboro in their process and where they were into this and what they were doing and what they thought. So we spent a lot of time kind of investigating the good, the bad, and the ugly. So focusing on us, we did the same thing that we did with the ERP so that we could kind of marry it up. We went through every business process in those functional areas that I showed you. So all of those highlighted, this is what happens. We went through and we created a process so that we knew what was happening and what those departments were doing at current state. And then what were their pain points, right? What were things that were difficult for them when they were collecting this information? Is it the technology and the tools? Is it a lack of internal communication? Is it a lack of reporting controls? They really don't know, they're taking in stuff in, but they don't have the right tools or the right format to report it out. Was there a lot of manual work? What was time consuming? So we took in all this information while we were doing these business processes so that we could build a roadmap on how to make it better. So phase 2. First activities where we did this wonderful strategic plan. So how are we going to align this with our strategic plan? And then we wanted to make sure, because we knew what internally our departments were doing, but we weren't sure how the residents felt, right? So we wanted to make sure this is all about them. So how are the residents and the businesses, what is their experience going to be? So first, with aligning it with our strategic plan, we felt that a high-performing government and a welcoming community, that this project fit really well. The initiatives that were not even with thinking with this project, initiatives that were provided basically defined the customer service standard project. Within the group that is going to be moving this project forward, that was currently the initial kind of core team, they needed some guiding principles. So what are our values? So if we're going to decide that we're going to provide excellent customer service, what is that team? What are their guiding principle and what are their values? So that they felt some type of connection as to what they wanted to do and how they wanted to service the residents and customers. So that's what this guiding principles. And then they turn that into standards, right? What are our standards? We're going to be consistent, we're going to empower staff, we're going to be responsive, and we're going to provide information. So they had everything set. We walked it through, and this is part of your change process. Why do you want to do it? We're getting their investment. So we've got their values investment because we asked the core team about this, and we're getting their standards. What do you want to see improved? So your pain points, your thoughts, your values, how are we going to turn this into Apex's unique way of customer service? So now that we've done the internal, now we got to do the external, right? Now we've got to go to the residents. So we had to, we did a survey through the communications department about resident feedback, learning what they want, learning to kind of build awareness and what they wanted to see within customer service. So we have done surveys before. This wasn't the first. So this is kind of your show of where we're at. So fortunately, we're doing pretty good. 76% satisfied, very satisfied, at least 14% neutral. So it gives us a good 90% of the people are happy, at least that filled out the survey. But usually, right, when you're going to fill out the survey, you're mad. So we're hoping we did pretty good, because usually you want to talk to somebody when you're unhappy with a service, not necessarily when you're happy. So that felt pretty good. There was a 50-50 split between people that wanted to talk to somebody on the phone and somebody that didn't want to talk to somebody on the phone. They wanted to handle it all digitally. I don't want to have to talk to somebody. I want to open a ticket or go to a portal, and I want to put my complaint in, and I want it to just disappear and go away. So we kind of had a 50-50 split.
Is there any demographic data on that 50-50 split?
I can certainly ask communications department on that if they collected that. Certainly can. But yeah, that's just those that filled out the survey.
Just
Yeah.
based on those.
Just based on who filled out the survey. So I'm not sure how anonymous it was, but I can certainly follow up with her on that. So yeah, this is future state. What should we focus on? Where do we want to go? Any of that type of information. I think there's some raw data that she has kept and provided from that. But we took that raw data. Here's some specifics to get into a little more detail. So here is the quality resident service. As you see, that was the satisfied, very satisfied, just to kind of show where we landed. And then these are some specific questions that were on there, right? Town employee was courteous. I received accurate information. The town employee made me feel very valued. So those are the types of questions that were asked.
Speaking to the demographics for the surveys, part of that, getting that demographics is going to be important, because you've got the language barriers, you've got disabilities, accommodations and things like that. And so it's going to be important for us to get that demographic so that we make sure that we incorporate all of that into, how we go forward with, whether it's via telephone, virtually, website, all of that.
That'll all be captured in the language.
Yes. So we also went outside. We went to other towns across the nation. So that's why we invested again with our consultant, Panorama. They help people everywhere, all over the United States. So they went out and they got the best practices. So who's doing this and who's doing this successfully? They got recommendations. They got, here's what you should do. Here's what you shouldn't do. Here's what works out best. Here's the gotchas. So they provided all that information as consultants and brought it back to give us more data to kind of chew on, to figure out what we wanted to do, how we wanted to start, maybe where the best place to start would be until we grew the service out. So phase 3. Here, this is where we focused on the resident journey mapping. So we've got a survey, right? We know the surveys and information that they want to see. But how are they interacting with the technology right now, right? What makes them happy? What makes them sad? So that's kind of, you'll see it as an example of the journey mapping. And what's the priority? How many calls are we getting? What's the priority of service delivery improvements based on, what are people having the most issues with? Future state assessments for business process maps. So we have the current ones, right? We know what's going on currently as we're doing those business process maps and mapping out how these services go. But now we need to say, all right, we've got all this data. What is the future service map going to look like? And then, as you guys have mentioned, a communication plan and an adoption plan as we move forward. So this is the customer journey maps. So you take, something as simple as I got a water outage and I want to report it. So let's walk through the process with a citizen, with a consultant, with anyone. Let's find out maybe where we're doing things well and maybe we're not doing things so well, or where we can improve. So that's the whole customer journey maps. We literally did these with all of the services that we provide, both a phone call and online, just to see where there might be some disconnection. We took all of those services that we provide and we did the future process flows. So this at the end, as I pass that off to Demetria, this is who we're going to now kind of pass this off to, who will be managing this. Now it's an importance to have a inventory of what services do we deliver to the town. Let's identify them so that we can make them a centralized service versus each department kind of doing their own thing. And have an inventory of them so we know what we're supposed to be servicing. So everybody in Apex knows, everybody internally knows, the team knows, they kind of have that inventory to know what we're actually providing with the service. So the future state process flows, this is, again, mapping the outline, helpful tips, things that we noticed that we're missing were maybe the service level agreements. So maybe we know when we're going to get back to the customer, but maybe the customer isn't really clear when we're going to, when they're going to get back to you. So we might be thinking we're doing great and they might be thinking we're doing great, which kind of reflected. And some people might say, no, I'm on social media now and I expect that 2 seconds. So you don't know, right? Unless you set those expectations. So that just needs to be listed. So that's part of now the added business process flow is to add those expectations and those service level agreements. And additionally, to add metrics, which will go back to the strategic plan, right? We'll be able to identify the measurements that we want to get out of this and tie it back to our strategic plan. Harmonize all of these processes so they're not independent for each department, right? These are processes that are coming from the town holistically as the town of Apex, and this is how they're going to flow. And then this, again, will be what the new staff will kind of manage as far as the standard operating procedures. This is what has to be kept tight in order for all that stuff to be harmonized, in order for all of those flows to work so that things don't break off independently again. These are the things, kind of the inventory list of what needs to be managed, which is the big list. And finally, change management, communication, and training. So again, having a change management plan so that when we implement this, not only are the internal staff has to kind of go through, this is why we're doing it, this is what's happening, but also our residents, right? When we make these changes, when software changes, when where they call in change, all of that stuff has to be planned for, making sure we have proper training and knowledge, again, both internally and externally, and a communication meeting. So how are we going to reach out to them? Just as you were talking about. Are we we can do it digitally, we can do it on social media, we're going to make phone calls, we're going to have town hall sessions. However we're going to do that, all of those communication matrix, we're going to plan it out. So back to the metrics and improvements. So industry standards, our industry benchmarks kind of on your right side, that's kind of the terminology all kind of 311 call centers know. So we are going to definitely take all of those benchmarks, include them into those service level agreements, and then we're going to tweak and add as we learn what is important and what we need. So the first one we've already added is the customer satisfaction. So maybe it's a post call, a post survey, something just to say, hey, we're on track, we're doing the right thing. And then next steps. So here are the next steps and where we're at. We're building out the detailed plan of activities. And we're going to do this with the correct staff. We're developing the cost assessments of what it's going to take. Do we need to involve another consultant? Are we able to do this just with staff? And then launch this service alongside of the CRM system. So CRM is what we don't have currently, which is a customer relations manager system. Again, this ties into the ERP. The ERP platform that we're moving to has a module, which is a customer relationship manager module. We just have to get moving with the Infor product that we own, get some groundwork laid, and we can take that module and make sure it fits the requirements that we want to do for customer relations management. And what is that for people that don't use that? It's almost like the sales call, right? Person knows Bob's called 10 times. He knows he's got Sarah and Joe as kids, and all that information, all that personal information is kept so that we have a basis. So we know, Sally Joe calls about her garbage all the time, right? He has called that for a couple of weeks. We can go back and say, hey, maybe we can proactively do something to make sure that Sally Joe has services met versus reactively, which we have to do now because we're just collecting requests. We're not looking at things proactively. So the customer relations manager is going to help us with that. It's going to pull everything in so we have a better look on data. It's not departmentized, it's servicized, which means it'll be all central. So things will come in and we'll be looking at it as a holistic service versus as who needs to do what. And hopefully it will also help with the proactiveness. So also demographics, you know, where are these problems happening? Is an issue in this area or this side of town? What vendor do we need to reach out to because this vendor is doing poor service in this location? So that's what that piece will hopefully help us with. Any questions so far?
Roughly how far behind Cary and Holly Springs would you say we are, like in terms of months? Because I see what they're doing. Like, when are we gonna be there?
I'm gonna go to you just let me right to it.
You're always like 2 slides ahead.
Can I miss the segue? Are most of the issues that staff describes with customers things that happen over and over again, or a lot of the things one-offs? Because it seems like a lot of this stuff really can help with addressing the things that happen repeatedly, but maybe less so the one-offs. And I was wondering, what's kind of the ratio of those two buckets, roughly? I mean, maybe it depends on the department, but like, are most things one-offs or are most things kind of over and over again?
We have strong areas, and this is all pending the data. I'm no expert. This is why this is getting passed off,
Okay.
because I have no buy in this. We're in IT, so all I can tell you is what I see in the numbers.
Okay.
So, you know, obviously trash. Every town in the USA of America has an issue with trash, right? You moved it 2 inches to the left, or it did come back, or you didn't pick it up. There's lots of problems that can happen with trash. So that looks like a repeatable problem, but often it's one-off issues, you know, different customer, same issue, or same customer, different issue.
Yeah.
So those things will be captured. And yes, we're hoping the CRM will also help a little bit with like the request for information. So if we get input in for that, and it's just something that communications needs to put on the website, great. Then we've proactively made that happen. Our number one goal is to work on lessening the all council emails that come through. So they'll have one central place for them to go. And you guys can say, this is where you go, right? If you want information, this is where we go, this is where you go, this is where internal staff goes to get all of these things resolved, no matter what it is.
And a lot of times, when you have staff, when you have a lot of numbers that, you know, the residents are calling, a lot of those calls go into a dark hole. And so a lot of times those complaints become no response, you know, and that's because we didn't catch those calls. And so right now, going back and cleaning up the website and getting rid of, you know, once we get that one number, and it may not be just that one number, we don't know what that is yet. So once we begin tracking, you know, where those calls come from, we can better define what's happening.
And going back to your question, by far, GFL is like our number one call.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge with that is that we aren't providing that service. It's an external service or vendor. So we're tracking it from a customer service perspective, making sure that that somebody's responding, but then we also have to pass it off away for somebody else to follow up. And so we're also managing that. John Mullis has done a great job of having a staff person responsible for that, and then also building that relationship with GFL to make sure that they're more responsive. And then also looking at, are there things that we can do where we can respond quicker? So like maybe can we have an inventory of garbage cans if there's something that's damaged? So he's looking at different ways that we can respond quicker. But by far, that's our latest.
Yeah, I mean, like in a lot of industries, there's only, you know, 1 or 2 providers of these kind of things. I'm thinking of HOA management companies is another one that I think a lot of people aren't happy with. But there's not a lot of options. And so I've always got the complaints and I've been like, well, it's contractor, it's never gonna be that good. Maybe that's wrong, but like I've always kind of brush it off saying it's hopeless in some ways, these things. But
Also, Marty.
It's also a
talked about the
mistake to say, there's 50,000 opportunities for them every week to make a mistake, 50,000. Or so, whatever it is, right? So they're making these pickups. So we have about a 0.4% complaint rate. 0.4.
Okay.
So in other words, just by the magnitude of our size, as we grow, we're going to get a certain number of calls in place because you're going to have issues. So as we get larger, that call volume is going to continue to grow. And sometimes it's just the nature of the business, right? It's just going to happen, but we still need to be responsive and we still have to be there to document and see what we can do to Katie's point. We're looking at ways that we can help make things better, but there's going to be, there's going to be complaints in that area. There's just a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong.
I just got one question. There's a telephone number that's been around since 1873. 919-362-8661. Would that, how soon would that go away with this new?
That could be the new number if you want it to. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, we could, we haven't worked out what the number is, so there's even opportunities that we can have for outreach for numbers.
You can have more than one number. I said we can have more than one number, like you could just forward to the new system. I think there's something cool about having a regional thing where everyone knows where we are. I have to worry about specifically what boundary municipality you're in that you dial 311. And if Cary and Holly Springs are both doing it, Raleigh does it, why would it be different that way?
Erie has APEX.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We're having some conversations to see if we can get it, but
Oh, then I think they're not giving to
it's
us.
not just automatically our, like if our folks call,
Is it
it
one company?
automatically comes to us.
Really?
Correct. It takes a lot of work with the telecom companies to get it transferred,
I see.
and that's just for landline. Then if you wanted to cellular, it's a whole other.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
why finding a number that anybody can call anywhere, no matter where they are, even if they're not, if they want informational, we want to be able to provide that service as well.
Well, that being said, so what I'm excited about is the idea there's gonna be a CRM, no matter how you contact the town, whether it's, through the website or whether you call someone, or whether you, I don't know, send a text message to the mayor or whatever, or make a social media post that we respond to, like whatever you do, it all goes into one central place and gets tracked. And then it's like a ticket number we can give people and say, follow up on this sort of thing. Like that's pretty cool. Cause I think that's the issue is that people feel like, sometimes their complaints, like depending on where they come from, it may actually go into a black hole if you don't do it a certain way. And having one central system, I think would be a big win. We get metrics on how often, what the response time is, talk about the service level.
So this is the last couple slides, and then I'll pass it off for the staff, but I know your question was on, where are we at? So before I get into this, both Cary and Holly Springs had like full staff, four people at least at minimum that were hired and then started working on this. And it took them anywhere 9 months to a year to get it implemented after they already had the staff identified. So we do not have staff yet. I'm going to pass that off to Demetria in a minute. But this is kind of where we have been and what we have done to make sure that we are headed in the right direction and we've done our homework. So we started in April of 22, assembled all the departments that kind of have people that are handling requests now, right? What they're doing. That's how we captured it. We got all the subject matter experts. We documented the current processes in mapping, seeing where they're at, seeing how they overlapped, seeing where the pain points were, kind of all the slides that I went through, and began working on the ERP. How is this going to tie in? Because we want the front process to come in. We want a smooth transition to the back process to make sure that everything gets handled appropriately. Then we started with the strategic planning roadmap, making sure that these projects align with our strategic plan and the initiatives from the strategic. Recut from October, we prepped the workshops with administration to make sure what we had done and the work we had done so far was in line with what they wanted to see. In November, we went back and we validated some of the frameworks that we're looking at and developed all of those business process inventory maps so that we knew what we had to do moving forward. In December, that's when we focused on kind of the journey sections and the collective data to know that what we had done, what prior people had done, and what research was in line with the direction that we were going. And then we continued this research, developing documentation and templates for the new people to come in, and what we wanted to start off with our key performance indicators. So now, yay, what do we have left? So the very last slide is kind of what we have left. We've got the project initiation, so we have to have the right team involved to kind of take this over. Like I said, we don't take the beating, we just hold all the numbers for the people that are taking the beatings. So we're going to pass this up. We're certainly going to help with the customer relations manager and the guidance through the technology piece of it. But the actual core team, all this information and all these templates will be passed off. So that has to happen, right? It has to be a team. We have to conduct kind of the physical space. And again, I'm not going to take the thunder. She's going to talk more about that. The physical space, where we want these people, what they want, what do we want them to do? We can do probably a soft launch, 5 to 8 months once we have all that in line. Then once all that's in line and we've done kind of a soft launch, we'll do further planning, confirming, making sure that we're on target with the residents, any development that needs to be made or changes with the measurements and the data that's coming in. And then, of course, ongoing measurement and improvements just to make sure we continue training people and new people that come in. Going live with any technical changes are well thought out, and we continue the governance over this customer service standards project. And with that, I will hand it over to Demetria.
So none of this happens without people in place, right? Thank you so much, Erica and her team. They have really done the heavy lift in the planning aspect, building the infrastructure around the CSS program. So as you know, the Community Development and Neighborhood Connections Department has the 311. And so right now there's only one staff person. And so there are 3 positions that will be key to the project initiation and the project initiation, is that initiation? Project initiation and the implementation of the program. That's the Community Development and Neighborhood Connections Director, who we have an offer on the table for. Yay. So hopefully over the next 3 weeks to a month, we'll have the director on board. The next position is the Community Engagement Coordinator, which the 311 manager will be reporting to. So the Community Engagement Coordinator and the director positions were positions that were budgeted from last year's budget, but the 311 manager, and then there's 4 customer service representatives. I like to think that we might potentially call them ambassadors. It's more of a personable touch when reaching out and engaging with the community. Discuss that, Katie. But anyway, so there's 4 CSRs, I'll call them that for right now, that we will bring the 311 manager on board after the budget is approved in July. And that individual will be responsible for working to finalize what this is going to look like and be coordinating and facilitating the work as we go forward. Later in the fall, we'll bring on another CSR staff person that will work with the 311 manager. And in January of 2024, we'll bring on 2 more that will, be responsible for working with the 311 manager and the CSR to further finalize maybe that soft launch that we'll potentially do, but hopefully by the spring, we will be able to do that soft launch or, launch the program, because it will be, a year after we've, started to put a lot of the tests in place around the program, everything that's been developed so far. I want to say that with the rollout that Erica mentioned, Panorama may be working with us, working with the 311 manager and the CSR initially to set up all the templates, to create the standard operating procedures and things like that. I'd like to hope that, you know, they will continue to work with us to do that. But what's going to be critical is training. The 311 manager will continue to work with the existing departments to coordinate the, you know, setup of the 311 program. And I keep saying 311 now that I know that it's not, it may not be 311, but CSS program. Panorama is going to be key in that training and the onboarding. And so if we can get that, if we can get them on board to help us initially, that will help to make for a smooth process as we launch, you know, the CSS program. The other thing I want to mention, initially, I think, I lost my place here, sorry.
As you're thinking, I had a personnel question, and I'm not sure if it's to you or to you, Katie. So I'm guessing that we're gonna have a hiring up of people, the ambassadors, whatever we're gonna call them, they're gonna help out with this. But as far as like the total number of employees working on this kind of issue, it may not be like a long-term jump, because presumably we won't be hiring people in like individual departments to do this task. They'll be done by the centralized thing. So over time, it'll be kind of the same number of employees, just with growth of the town, not like a bunch of extra people, right? Is that true?
So you'll have the initial 4, as we grow, we may need more folks because the call volume may go up. But those individuals that are taking the initial call, they'll still have to talk to somebody in the department.
Yeah.
Which is the team that Erica's been working with to kind of help.
But some like public works, customer service person would never get hired in the future because
There'll be a
part of
3
this.
Right.
They'll do everything.
That's centralized.
Okay.
Right, so, and we didn't talk about the, what Panorama recommended. There were 3 options, okay? There was the hub spoke model, which is similar to what we're doing now. It's a combination of the, it's a hybrid of the centralized and decentralized model. That's basically what we're doing now, where the calls go out to each of the departments and they address their specific issues. And then we have they also, the other option was the centralized operations model, which is what they recommended that we do. And I know Councilman Mahaffey had mentioned, why didn't we, I think you asked a question a couple of months back about outsourcing. And so that decentralized operations model was another option that we had, but I think Panorama, they recommended that we do the centralized operations model. So what that would mean for us is, as we are implementing the centralized operations model, the existing departments will continue to field their own calls for their departments. The training that's part of the process for the new staff that comes on board, they're not going to know. That's going to be one of the difficulties, is learning about every department. And so it's going to be important for the departments to be a part of that training process, to get the new staff up to speed on the different issues that come through, the non-emergency calls that come through, based on that slide where all of the things that Apex residents call in for, requesting services for. Does that make sense? So basically, what's going to happen now between July and August, we will bring on the 3 staff people, the director, hopefully, and community engagement coordinator, and the 311 manager is what they are called now. That 311 manager is going to have to be a strong self-starter. Hopefully, that individual will have the experience to be able to hit the ground running, to take what Erica and her team have put together and hit the ground running, working with the different departments to get this program up and going.
Yes. Questions?
15 minutes.
You're great. You're good.
So that's all we have
That's all we have.
for today.
A lot of good updates, great information. I do want to commend Erica, Demetria, Troy, Fernando. Great job putting this all together. You know, it's been a lot of work, so we really appreciate it. We look forward to the next phase. So any other business for council members? Any questions? Hearing none. I do want to, for council, entertain a motion to go into closed session for personnel matter. I got a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, motion passes. We don't need that.